again. So there could be this morning another step in the pursuit of justice for Grenfell residents. They've been told by police that they are now looking at prosecuting the local council and management company for corporate manslaughter.
Campaigners, though, on the ground, lots of the survivors say that actually the investigation needs to go much further than that, and they need to take action against individuals in those corporations over the fire that killed at least 80 people, because there's a big difference in what would happen as a consequence between corporate manslaughter and individual charges.
Absolutely. Joining us now is Atik Malik from a group of lawyers campaigning with Grenfell survivors. So let's just look at that then. Corporate manslaughter, there's an unlimited amount of fine, so it could be in the millions and millions and millions. It hasn't previously been before, has it? It's about $500,000. But if there is any kind of individual position, then that carries a prison sentence.
Absolutely. So with corporate manslaughter, as you said, there's no prison sanction.
No.
It's an action just against the corporation. There's no power of arrest either. With involuntary manslaughter, gross negligence manslaughter, a person can go to prison and suffer a financial sanction. And that is something which people on the ground, activists, supporters and residents, of course, are pursuing and would like to have pursued and considered. A letter went out earlier on this week from the Met Police setting out that they will be looking at corporate manslaughter. The letter does say they'll be looking at other offences too. But in the aftermath of Grenfell, what a lot of people feel is that there's been a big breakdown of trust and confidence. People are not happy. It's a tragic incident as it is.
Will it help them, the fact that they've taken this step to communicate this information and also be seen to be pursuing some kind of justice? Will that help in the very necessary rebuilding of trust?
If I can put the answer to that into context, earlier this week there was a public meeting at the Notting Hill Methodist Church. And it was quite a heated meeting, reported in the mainstream press, where people were really unhappy, and etc. And one of the questions that was put in that meeting was about corporate manslaughter. And this was why they reported the answer to that. And the question was asked, has anyone ever been convicted? And the answer that was given from that panel was no. Now, that creates two problems. One is not correct, because there have been convictions of corporate manslaughter.
Yes, it's been about 16, hasn't
So the question is, why is the panel who's leading this inquiry in Grenfell not aware that there have been convictions? The second concern is this. That does not instill confidence in people. So if you have that meeting on Tuesday, then a few days later the Met Police say, hello, everybody, we are now pursuing investigation for corporate manslaughter. And we're not arresting anybody because you cannot, and nobody's going to prison because you cannot, then everybody who's affected by Grenfell, the residents and the supporters and activists, saying, well, on the back of the meeting earlier in the week, and the fact that no other offences are mentioned, will we see justice?
Yeah, and it's going to be a long process. That's the thing as well. It's, the police themselves are saying, it could take a year or longer to actually bring this to court in whatever form it happens. But just in terms of if this corporate manslaughter thing is in effect the only charges that can be brought and individuals aren't brought to book, it's, as you say, it brings with it a massive fine potentially. The question that we were talking about earlier when we realised that this was the story this morning was that fine must have to be paid from council taxpayers' money, and the council has about £274 million in reserve. A, how big could the fine be? And secondly, won't the residents themselves, who are already grief-stricken and poor because of the situation, they're going to end up paying it again?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and in my opinion, it's a farce, isn't it? If you've got potential convictions here, but the people actually paying for it are the affected.
So who would pay that fine, and who would the fine money go to?
Well, the fine money would go to the government or the courts,
they then
and it could be split into compensation.
Give it back
yes,
to
that
the
can
resident?
happen as well. It all depends on what orders the judge makes. So compensation can be ordered from there too. But the fact is this. The investigation includes other bodies too. It's not just the council. So there will be corporate bodies also being looked at. But there is an element of that which will be coming from the taxpayer. So is the taxpayer suffering again?
Interesting. Well, we're going to have you on a little bit later on as well. Thank you, Atik. I mean,
we should just give the statement, actually, shouldn't we? We got a statement from the new leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council, Elizabeth Campbell, elected after the fire. And she said, we fully support the Metropolitan Police investigation and will cooperate in every way that we can. It will not be appropriate to comment further on matters subject to the police investigation. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's get the headlines now. Here's Charlotte.